everyone, and welcome to the Her Hoop Stats podcast. Today is Wednesday, June 18th. And if you're not subscribed to this podcast already, what are you doing? Head down below, subscribe, whether you're on YouTube or listening somewhere else. And make sure to check out Her Hoop Stats online at herhoopstats.com, as well as our social medias on X or Blue Sky or Instagram, wherever you prefer to yap with strangers. Speaking of yapping with strangers, it's been a spicy 14 hours in the WNBA. Last night, if you, were living under a rock or didn't have Wi-Fi access, there were most of the teams, 6 WNBA games, which left the Phoenix Mercury as the lone team not playing, and probably just eating some popcorn and watching what was going down because it was spicy. 6 games. The Dallas Wings won a game. Woo! Shout out that the funniest part from that game was Arike Ogunbowale and Geno Auriemma, coming together and squashing their beef, their decades-long beef, which I thought was hilarious. She tweeted after that she dapped up Geno Auriemma and that there is no beef no more, which is like such deep lore that I love it. I love when lore comes up. And the people who have been watching for for just a year are like, what's going on? And then you got to explain it to them and all the lore. But that was hilarious. And the fact that the WNBA then posted the video because everybody was like, we need proof. I'm not going to believe this until I see the proof. But yeah, I mean, given that you're across the pond, I'm really bad at an English accent. Richard Cohen, who is here with me today, one of our hoop stats experts, here with me on the podcast today. So, Richard, how much of this action were you able to watch, given that I am in the optimal time zone and I truly couldn't keep up with it all?
My general attack with games is that I can watch 2 simultaneous games and actually take in what's going on.
Yeah.
Maximum of 2. So
yeah.
I switch from one to the other and sort of skip over timeouts and free throws.
Yeah.
So given that last night's games were spread over 5 hours, I've watched, I'd say, 4 of the 6.
So, are you sitting here watching hoops at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
Oh boy, the dedication. I could never. I was in bed by midnight. But yeah, I mean, I am the same, if not worse. I can only really pay attention to one basketball game at a time. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm, skipping over timeouts. My League Pass app, I'm just going from one stream to the other. Obviously, I watched most of the LA. What did they play?
Seattle.
There we go. See, I can't even keep track. LA, Seattle, because that was the only one on at 10 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, I mean, I caught most of the Lynx Aces game. I was in and out of Dallas and the Golden State Valkyries. I was watching, obviously, the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun. And what was the other one? See, again, I can't even remember. Oh, Chicago. Washington. See, again, I don't even have it up. It was just a lot. That was the one that kind of fell to the wayside for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, the one you didn't mention, Minnesota at Las Vegas, was one of the 4 that I was watching. Yeah, so
yeah, that one was interesting because A'ja Wilson was out, and then obviously she's still suffering her concussion, so I think she's just kind of day to day right now. Don't want to rush back a concussion. But the Aces were away at Minnesota and got out to a pretty substantial lead given that they were Wilson-less. And then as Cheryl Reeve does in halftime, kind of rallies the troops, is able to get them to turn it around. But then Napheesa Collier goes out, I believe right before the fourth quarter, with what they were calling...
It was earlier than that. They did the vast majority of the comeback happened without Collier.
Without her, yeah.
Which was good to see for Minnesota. They got, Diamond Miller's season finally got started, and they've actually, they got some stuff done without Collier, which could be good for them in the future.
Yeah, exactly. That was
too serious.
Exactly. So yeah, she goes out, I think it was mid third quarter with that back injury. They decided to just keep her out for the night because Diamond Miller and the Stud Buds, shout out to the Stud Buds, were absolutely going off, which is great for my fantasy team because I have both of the Stud Buds on my fantasy team. So they were.
This is not a nickname I've heard before. Is this Courtney Williams
What?
and Napheesa Heidemann?
You haven't heard of Stud Buds yet? Oh my gosh, Richard, you need to be more chronically online.
I'm online enough. I just stay away from places that come up with names like that. Is the potential issue here?
Buds is Napheesa. You were right, Napheesa Collier and Courtney Williams, and they have been streaming online, just doing live streams of like them just hanging out.
You mean Heidemann and Williams, right? Not
yeah. Napheesa Heidemann and Courtney Williams, and they've been doing streams like in their hotel rooms, in their apartments, and they bring their teammates, they bring people who are in town to play the game onto the streams. They dyed their hair pink, which then caused all of the Minnesota Lynx fans to come with like pink wigs last weekend. But then I think it was Napheesa Heidemann then dyed her hair back to blonde. It's a whole saga. So yeah, the Stud Buds is what their duo is called, and we love it. It's hilarious.
No,
but
all I saw of that was the clip where they were talking about how they thought Alana Smith was gay.
And then she had to publicly come out. Yeah,
come out as straight.
Yeah, that was after the whole like Instagram thing. But yeah, that was like kind of like the beginning of the Stud Buds era, and now it like. There was one day where Napheesa Heidemann had gone to the dentist and she was like totally on some sort of pain relief.
Oh, you don't want to stream live when you're on those sorts of drugs. You can say anything.
Exactly. At one point, Cheryl Reeve was saying stuff in practice, then they were talking about it, then Cheryl Reeve was talking to them again. Like it's hilarious, quite honestly. And so now the fans have kind of taken to it, and Courtney's dad has taken into it, which love him. He's a great guy. And so yeah, the Stud Buds did their big one last night and keeping not only bringing the Minnesota Lynx back, but being able to beat the Aces, which I mean, you should do when Wilson isn't there, especially this year, just given their defensive like lack of effort, as Becky Hammon has said. So yeah, that was the other game that I was keeping tabs on. And then Dallas gets their second win of the season. Their first home game. And I mean Geno Auriemma was there, so I posted on Blue Sky saying that Geno Auriemma has to come to every Dallas Wings game now, and I mean I think that's valid.
I think you'll have trouble convincing him to become their
mascot. Exactly. But it was a great game given the Valkyries have been kind of on a stretch lately of playing really well. They're definitely playing just like kind of better than we may have expected coming into the season, and obviously Dallas is playing a little bit worse than we may have expected going into the season. But yeah, I mean, it was a good win for the Wings, and especially like now you just kind of have their your first home win of the season kind of off, like the pressure is off, I guess.
So many players now missing for Golden State with Eurobasket kicking in, and the way they've built their roster with so many international players that maybe they finally hit their limit of the amount of turnover that they sort of can cope with and still keep winning games.
I mean, it wasn't that Dallas won 80-71.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a blowout.
Yeah, it wasn't a blowout. Paige scored 20 points. She led the team, Paige Beckers, with 20 points. She only had 2 assists, but 4 rebounds, 4 steals. 2 blocks and only 3 turnovers. Arike Ogunbowale had a good game, 19 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and 1 block. And then the rest of them were there. But then, obviously you have a lot of turnover for Golden State, like you said. I mean, Kayla Thornton and Monique Billings scored 17 and 18 points. Leticia Amahir, obviously, great pickup. She scored 14 points. Tiffany Hayes with 10, masked Tiffany Hayes now with her broken nose. But I mean, I think it was just one of those times where Dallas really had to hold strong. I mean, they were outscored in the third quarter, 21-19, and then outscored the Valkyries 22-14 in the final quarter. So, just kind of like a good showing of resilience and a good showing of like fourth quarter closing out from them.
Which is something they've struggled with this season. And I mean, Dallas haven't been as bad as their record suggests. Basically, I mean, they've been a better team than Chicago and Connecticut, despite the fact that they've only won one game. If you look at any of the stats, sort of going a little bit deeper than pure record, Dallas have been bad, but not nearly as bad as the sun and the sky. So yeah, maybe give it a few games, they'll end up evening that out, and they might well still end up in the lottery, but they should end up ahead of the sky and the sun.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully they're starting to figure things out now. They unfortunately have lost a few players to injury. Maddie Siegrist will be out for the foreseeable future. She was diagnosed with a fractured tibia bone, just kind of up in her knee. There's a fancy medical term for it that I don't have in front of me, but it's a fractured tibia bone. And then Ty Harris is out for the entire season as well. So they're kind of dealing, but now they have Lee Rue in, who was traded from Seattle to kind of boost their front court with Tierra McCowan out and Louisa, how do you say her last name? You're European. Geiselslurter. There we go. Yeah. So she's out at Eurobasket as well. So they needed someone to kind of come in and boost their front court, which Lee Rue does. I mean, she only scored 2 points yesterday, but that will hopefully get better as she gets more used to the system. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to shout that out just because it was a good win for the Wings, and obviously Paige leading her team as a rookie with 20 points. And did you know, fun fact, because I was dishing around Paige's, her hoop stats page the other day, and she is leading the entire league in mid-range accuracy. Like, she is shooting 100th percentile when it comes to shooting in the mid-range as a rookie.
I did not know that, but it doesn't massively surprise me. She's very, very good. We know this already. And as I said last week, I think we were spoiled by Clark in terms of how good we expected rookie guards to be. It is hard to be this good as a rookie guard in the WNBA.
So hard.
We have not seen many players come into the league as ball handlers and be this good immediately. It doesn't happen.
So I pulled up Paige's her hoop stats page just to give the exact numbers because it's just wild. Like, she's in the 99th percentile when it comes to mid-range field goals attempted and field goals made. So she has made 25 field goals from the mid-range and attempted 54. And then her hoop stats gets specific, and she is leading the entire league in shooting from 10 to 15 feet. She is 19 for 35, and both of those numbers are within the 100th percentile for the league, which, like, again, like, the mid-range is a very hard place to be able to operate from, especially as a guard, because, a lot of times you lack the size that is going on in that range. And I mean, just having the green light to shoot from 10 to 15 feet is also something that not a lot of players have. And so someone like Paige coming in and already dominating that area, I love a mid-range shot. I don't care what Nate Tibbetts has to say. I love the mid-range.
I'm enough of a modern efficiency aficionado to prefer the threes and the layups. Courtney Williams has driven me insane for her entire career with her refusal to step behind the arc or to drive, and to constantly want to shoot from 18 feet every time she goes down the floor.
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? But let's get into, I feel like we've been kind of beaten around the bush here when it comes to last night's biggest stories. Woo! Go us! Well, I wanted to make sure we talked about, some hoops before we got into this, but things were getting spicy. And they were in Indiana, or were they in Connecticut?
They were very much in Indiana.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
The crowd and the broadcast.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, now I remember seeing people's stories. But yeah, Indiana versus Connecticut, which, if you are not up to date on Big Ten hoops, you will know that Caitlin Clark and JC Sheldon have had a long history of on-court battles. Caitlin Clark obviously played for Iowa. JC Sheldon played for Iowa State. Huge rivalry between those teams, especially in the era that Clark and Sheldon played in, because they were always just kind of like battling for Ohio State. Yeah. Did I not say Ohio State, Brian?
I think you may have said Iowa State.
Ah, dang it. Sorry. I'm so used to Jamie being here that I say Iowa State instead. So JC Sheldon played for Ohio State, the Ohio State University. Go Buckeyes, just so we have that clear. And Jamie's got in my head now. That's the other thing. But yeah, so they just have a long-standing rivalry. So I don't think anything that happened last night in the Sun Fever game was anything that just came about last night. Like, I do think there's some long-standing tension, but to stop beating around the bush, I mean, the Indiana Fever did end up winning, but the biggest stories of the game were the several on-court scuffles that happened. I mean, the first was kind of Marina Mabrey shoving Caitlin Clark a little bit, resulting in some technical fouls and stuff. And then at the very end of the game, excuse me, when the Fever had already secured the game, Sophie Cunningham, hard fouls JC Sheldon, and they get into a scuffle that then the whole kind of team comes into. People were ejected, and there's been a lot of online discourse about the events of that game. I kind of want to get your feel of it. Like, what were your reactions, and how do you feel about the reaction from just the general public?
Well, inevitably, anything around Clark gets blown out of all proportion on any given occasion. But I thought Mabrey could have been tossed for the bump, but also that it wasn't wildly unreasonable that she wasn't. It was sort of a flagrant 1.5.
1.5, yeah.
Because, I mean, whenever these sorts of fouls happen, we often see like teammates come running in and start pushing and shoving. And
yeah,
what Mabrey did to me didn't seem an awful lot worse than the sort of shove that players often get a flagrant 1 for, or a technical for coming in and joining a fracas or a fracas, as American broadcasters like to call them. It just so happened that she got so close to Clark, and Clark was sort of surprised by the contact, so she went flying, which then made it look much worse. But the thing is, you can't punish it based on the reaction, or what you'll have is whenever anyone gets remotely glanced by an opposing player, they'll throw themselves 5 feet backwards in order to get that person thrown out.
Call.
So you can't do it all based on the impact and the reaction, even though the rules do say that the results of the actions can be taken into account when you're doing the punishment. The play at the end of the game, I thought, to sort of refer to your national sport, I thought that was a goon play from Cunningham.
Yeah.
That was a completely unnecessary foul on a player that was about to become defenseless, and like you say, in the final minute of a 20-point game. So
yeah,
completely. That was because her star player had gotten hurt earlier in the game, and she wanted to get back at her. And then after that, there was the hair pull and the sort of the screaming in Sheldon's face in the pushing match after it as well. So yeah, I thought Cunningham earned her ejection, and yeah, we'll have some fines and everything else coming for it all as well afterwards. But, yeah, I mean, the story ended up being whether the refs should have done more to control the game than they did, and I think it's tough. But the officials get a lot of criticism, but in a lot of cases, what they're doing is putting into practice the rules that they're told to put into practice. They do what they're told in a lot of cases. So you have to go higher up the ladder, higher up the food chain to what the instructions are for the officials, whether they're being told to throw people out for any kind of escalation in a fight, whether they're being told to call flagrants when people get elbowed in the head. We've seen so much head contact in the league in the first month of the season.
I mean,
so often going unreviewed as well, where no one bothers to check the video. No one ever wants to call a flagrant for it. And the games just go on, and player after player ends up on the sideline needing treatment for head injuries. It's gotten ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, here's my take on all of it. I'll start by here's my take on the refereeing situation. I think that there is so much toxic online discourse, despite the fact that like they're trying to like stop the hate. I don't know what's happening with that. But anyway, I feel like, and this is just my opinion, I'm not saying that this is like, but my take on it is that there may be a situation where like the referees and the powers that be might be afraid of making these harsher judgments, the flagrant twos, the the fines, the throwing players out of the game, especially when it's against this team, the Indiana Fever, for obvious reasons. And I'm my theory is that they're afraid of bringing these calls in because they're going to get flack from online, because anytime there is anything between Caitlin Clark and anyone else, regardless of whose fault it is, I'm not putting blame on anyone, but it's going to get more press, it's going to get more news, there's going to be more people talking about it, and I think they would rather just try and move on quickly and get back to the game instead of throwing these harsher rulings out, whether it's ejecting players or doling out fouls or whatever. And like at the end of the day, then that's just kind of bleeding into the fact that now players are getting more head injuries. The game is being affected a little bit. So that's like just my take on the refereeing situation of it all. But when it comes to the actual plays that we're talking about, I mean, I'll start with the Sophie Cunningham one. Like you're blowing out a team. There's a few, like there's not very much time left. There's absolutely no reason to foul her like that. And I mean, I don't care what happened earlier, you're defending your teammate, whatever. But like, I don't think there's a place for that kind of physical contact, especially when you're throwing her down to the ground and then grabbing her neck in that way. I just think that there needs to be more mindfulness for player safety. And I don't think that they shouldn't be physical. Don't get me wrong. I love physical basketball. I love when they yap back and forth to each other. I love when they kind of get into it in terms of like, trash talking and et cetera, et cetera. I think that makes the game so much more fun and entertaining. But as soon as it gets to the point where you're like throwing people's heads down and like doing that kind of physical stuff, I think that's where it gets a bit egregious. Trash talk all you want, especially if someone is kind of beefing with your teammate throughout the game. And I don't think tech should be doled out for that as much. But the physical stuff, I think, for me is kind of like, because again, we've seen so many head injuries throughout the season so far. Asia Wilson's currently out with one. Paige Becker's had one. And we're seeing so many injuries in general. Like that just puts you at risk for, landing wrong and hurting your knee or hurting your ankle, hurting your arm, your shoulder, trying to brace yourself. And so that one for me, I was like, okay, like that was too much. I didn't like that one. I mean, and then when it comes to the one earlier with Marina and Caitlin, like you said, like I don't think Marina was trying to push her down that hard. That was just kind of the impact and the force that ended up going into it. Maybe she should have gotten ejected. I'm not the referee. In the end, they decided not to. But again, like anything involving Clark is just going to get you more noise. So like, I don't know what the answer is in terms of these players. Do they just avoid, getting into it with her? Can you avoid it when you're in the heat of the moment on the court? I mean, she taunts other players in ways too. Like she's very vocal on the court. She's like, her body language is very vocal. And, I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but that's going to happen. And so sometimes when you're on the other side of that, it's hard to, and the adrenaline's pumping, you're in the middle of the game, it's hard to not react. So, and I think that's a big part of her game too. Clark is a physical player. She likes to, trash talk. I mean, Diana Taurasi was the exact way. She likes to yap and get in your face and be physical and all of that. And I think, that's okay for it to be part of your game, but the fact that it is Caitlin Clark just means it's going to get more attention every time. And so I just think there's like a level of mindfulness that needs to go into it. And it's hard to talk about mindfulness in a basketball game, but like, I just think from the referees, from the players, from the coaches, like, I think we need to get to a place where more players are just being like mindful of the situations, where they're not trying to aggressively cause harm for no reason other than causing harm. Like, I get being physical in a basketball game because it's a basketball game, but if we're getting to the point, no matter if it's towards Caitlin Clark or if it's towards any other player, I think we need to, like, be mindful that we're not, purposefully causing harm for a reason that isn't related to basketball, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the league has a difficult problem to solve in terms of managing where they're going to go from here with fouls and physicality, because there are, if you just look at the raw numbers, there are more fouls being called this season than there were last season. There are not a massively lower number of flagrants being called than there were last season either. So, but the problem is, if you start calling everything, if you start trying to shut down any kind of physicality, then everyone starts complaining that the refs are ruining the flow of the game and sort of and stopping any kind of flow. And so how far can you go in one direction and still not have everyone upset about what you're doing to change things? Maybe you sort of, for a few weeks, you start calling everything and there are 50 fouls per game and you end up with 3-hour games, and
like
then
the NBA.
And then hopefully the teams respond and you end up with fewer. But it's on the players as well, because if you just keep calling everything and the players continue to beat each other up, then the refs just have to keep calling everything. Unless the players actually respond to it by hacking each other less, throwing fewer elbows, then nothing changes. So it's a difficult position to end up in, and clearly the coaches are starting to get rather upset. Steph White's line last night about everyone's getting better, pregnant pause, except the officials, was a very pointed statement. And I mean, where do you go to improve the officials? They're already using the best ones they have available to them. You can try and educate them, try and coach them to be as good as they possibly can be, but unless, say, the NBA is going to get involved and actually put the WNBA on the same level, just make a giant pool of officials who are tasked with with refereeing in both leagues, which doesn't seem likely to happen anytime soon. Then
they're just different games to call. Yeah, exactly. And I think I think about, because there's always this discourse when it's the WNBA of like, if this were an NBA game, would this be called? And I think that the WNBA in a lot of instances is more entertaining to watch because a lot of this physicality ends up being allowed, where in the NBA, fouls are called more often, the game is less physical in the paint, players rely more on perimeter shooting, fouls are called for, the level of superstar call or whatever is different. And so in the W, it's nice when they get to play a physical game of basketball. These are strong, athletic women. They can play a physical game. And, so I don't want that to go away. But again, I just think that there needs to be a cohesive strategy put in place by both the players and the referees to continue to have this very physical and entertaining game, but without getting to the point where, people are getting concussions, people's Instagram comments are getting flooded. I know that has nothing to do with the referees, but JC Sheldon's Instagram comments are not a fun place right now. And I think it also, there's a little bit of onus on the fans too, to do a little bit of research, know that these things, things get escalated in a game, and try, I don't know, it's hard to say don't have these wild takes, but at the end of the day, it's a game. We need to just be okay, she got ejected, cool, let's move on, on to the next game, instead of just spending days on this discourse of everybody hates this one player, or this person's being targeted, where no, they're just trying to play basketball.
Yeah, it's a shame that this is how we end up in the mainstream discussion, is that people talk about the WNBA when stuff like this happens, whereas when there's a great game going on, then there's a lot less attention. But hopefully, they can focus on basketball at some point.
When you think about last night, Indiana ended up making it to the commissioner. It was the last night of the Commissioner's Cup. So Indiana makes it to the Commissioner's Cup. Minnesota makes it into the Commissioner's Cup on that huge comeback. Dallas wins. Paige Beckers has a great game. There's so many other narratives going on. And all anybody could talk about is this Fever Sun game, but not even the game, the outside discourse of it all. So yeah, it's just and I'm not putting I don't think there needs to be blame on any specific player or person. It was coming from both sides. The referees, were a little inconsistent with and they have been all season in terms, but again, we're talking about, there needs to be a joint, consistent, effort to make sure that it's not getting out of hand. And I'm not the one who has all the answers. I'm just here with a microphone. So, I'm just here to yap about it. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, and it's changed the way that we take in WNBA games, because as soon as something happens on the court, you're like, "Oh, here we go again. Here's all the think pieces that are going to come out. Everybody's going to be yelling at each other online," and that shouldn't be the immediate reaction.
Yeah, it would be great if we could just watch how good Caitlin Clark is at basketball, and not have to think every time she gets fouled that's going to end up being clipped or turned into the story on talk shows for the next 3 days.
Literally. And I feel like Saturday's game against the New York Liberty was just that. She was hooping, and it was so entertaining, and it was a great game between her and the New York Liberty, and they deserved that win, and it was a great win for the Indiana Fever. And it was so much just about the hoops and how good Caitlin is at shooting, and how good she was in her first game back in 3 weeks. And then for the immediate next thing to be this is just
disappointing. Yeah. And of course, then we end up talking about it for 15, 20 minutes as well. But yeah,
exactly. Hey,
when it becomes the major topic, there's not a lot else we could do.
Exactly. We just got to sit here with our mics and yap. But anyway, this is going to be discourse, at least for the foreseeable future, given Clark's first year in the league. And I don't think it's her specifically that is causing all of this. I think she just wants to play basketball, and she wants to play basketball the way that she wants to play, and that's fine. There are players who have played like that in the past, and they're celebrated, i.e. Diana Taurasi. And I think she's great at playing basketball, and I just think that the outside narratives are what kind of makes it a little sticky sometimes.
There's always been a thin line between physical defense and good defense. If you're going to be effective as a defensive player, then you're usually going to walk right on the line of fouling people, because that's how you upset people. That's how you get in their head, get in right in there, right close to them, and stop their shooting motion, stop their action. So people like Bruce Bowen, if you go back, were really, really physical defenders who upset people with what they did. And Clark's going to have to live with that, and Clark's fans are going to have to live with that, because that's the best way to try and handle her shooting. You've got to get tight to her, or she's going to shoot from 35 feet. So yeah, you got to stay tight to players like that.
Yeah, if you're not tight to her, she's just going to throw it up from anywhere, and she can get it in from anywhere. So yeah, it's just kind of like you said, the way they have to defend her. And I think when you think about, Asia Wilson was concussed, and Paige Beckers, and the outrage at that definitely didn't reach the level that it would have the other way around, right? So I think we need to have an equal level of outrage for all player safety instead of just one player's safety.
Yeah, wouldn't argue with.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, let's, we'll end it off with a little something more positive. We have one game in the WNBA tonight. The Phoenix Mercury and, again, the Connecticut Sun. They're playing back-to-back tonight. Curious to see if there's anything handed out before that, if there's any, rulings that come about before the game starts, if anybody will end up not playing. But other than that, Phoenix versus Connecticut. Phoenix was the only team that didn't play last night, so they have fresh legs. They were just sitting around watching all the chaos. And Connecticut, of course, as we know, sitting at 2-9, while the Phoenix Mercury are at 8-4. So that should be an interesting game. Kalia Copper is getting more integrated into the lineup, so excited to see her play a lot more. And I mean, this Phoenix team has been really fun to watch, just given the fact that they're taking a bunch of undrafted and just like underdog players that haven't really gotten a chance anywhere else, and are mixing them with these really talented league, standard players who have been some of the best players in the league for the past few years. So they're a fun team to keep up with.
Yeah, for people who've been around as long as I have, seeing Phoenix be lauded as a top end defensive team is very strange. We're used to this being an offensive squad that then has to cope with how bad their defense is by outscoring other teams. But Tibbetts has got them playing as a collective unit, and they're a lot of fun. I mean, it's nice seeing these players that a few of us might have heard of playing in the French league or God knows where else, scattered around the world. But who on WNBA terms have come out of nowhere, and they found the right ones and put together a great squad.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of Europe, before we go, let's, do we have a Eurobasket update? Has anything happened, across the pond in the past few days?
The tournament got underway today, so we have two completed games at time of recording. Lithuania beat Slovenia with Jacite, the 19-year-old who was drafted by Golden State, leading the way. Jessica Shepard also had a ridiculous number of points and rebounds, as she usually does for Slovenia. And France nearly blew their first game. They trailed virtually the entire game to Turkey, but pulled it out right at the end with a couple of threes from Ayayi, who San Antonio fans may remember from a long time ago playing for the Silver Stars for about 5 minutes. But she's a good player, and there are probably a lot of WNBA teams who have tried to sign her at various times. But she hasn't chosen to come back to the WNBA yet. Who knows? Might happen at some point.
Yeah, and I mean, that's interesting from France, given that a lot of their big ticket players decided not to play, and like Gabby Williams, Marine, Carla Leite, et cetera. So, I mean, them losing that first game or winning that first game, like by a small margin, is intriguing, something to follow.
Yeah, and I mean, these 14 groups, everyone only playing 3 games, so one loss can be absolutely crucial, because only the top 2 go through from each group. So one loss can kill you quickly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure next time we talk, we'll have some fun Eurobasket updates. But for now, we are going to end it here. I'll be back tomorrow with Coach Helen Williams to, I guess, break down what happens with Phoenix and Connecticut tonight. Maybe it'll be as spicy as last night. We'll see. But thank you so much for watching the Her Hoop Stats podcast. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to your podcasts, and check us out on social media on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, as well as subscribing to herhoopstats.com for all of the latest stats, cap sheets, information, player information, team information, everything you possibly could need. Her Hoop Stats is the place to get it. So make sure to check it out there. And for, Richard and Chelsea here today, we will see you next time. Thanks so much for listening.